Today I am going to talk about Rurouni Kenshin. Rurouni Kenshin, also known as Samurai X, is a Japanese manga series. It was very popular in the late 90s and the early 2000s, especially in my home country, Venezuela. Rurouni means wanderer, meaning wanderer Kenshin. The story begins during the Meiji era, a period in Japan where it transitioned from a feudal society to an industrialized nation state and emergent great power, also known as the Empire of Japan. The manga follows the story of a former assassin of the Meiji government called Hitokiri Batosai. After the Civil War ended and Japan became unified through bloodshed, Batosai disappeared and re-emerged as Himura Kenshin. Feeling extreme guilt for all the people he murdered, he vowed not to take another life and devoted himself to protecting people as a wandering swordsman. This manga became my favorite because of the impact it had on me as a child, mainly because of the personality of the lead character, Kenshin, who after years of senseless violence, trauma, grief, and guilt, found peace through atonement. And he knew that the only way of achieving it was using the skills he once had as one of the greatest swordsmen to devote himself to the protection of others without taking lives. He started this by using a reverse blade sword that was unable to cut. He has a calm demeanor, a goofy character, and is loving and kind. But at the same time, he often struggles with his past and his alter ego, Batosai, who was a cold blooded killer and who is at risk of re emerging when faced with extreme circumstances, like when the people he loves the most are in danger. The story centers in his path towards atonement. He believes he can never achieve it, so he wanders Japan helping as many people as he can, not for forgiveness, but as a moral obligation and as a gesture of repentance. During his travels, he meets a woman called Kamiya Kaoru, who inherited the fighting style and the philosophy of her father, which believes in the protection of others without the use of a real sword. So she uses one made out of bamboo. They both bonded, and upon learning about his past, she forgives the person he once was and praises who he is in the present. Along the way, they meet a teenage orphan by the name of Myojin Yahiko, who came from a samurai family but lost them during the war. He was forced into becoming a thief in order to repay a debt his family presumably owed to some gangsters, as his parents died before they could repay it. He felt grief over the loss of his parents. He hated the world around him. He was rescued by Kenshin and Kaoru, where he then realized there was still hope for him to restore the honor of his family and himself. So he vowed to become just like Kenshin. But due to his strong belief, Kenshin would not teach Yahiko his sword techniques because of what they stand for, which is murder. So Kaoru became his new teacher and both of them became his new family. Another main character in the series is Sagara Sanosuke, who during the Civil War was a member of a clan that joined forces with the Meiji government and played a key role in restoring peace in the land. However, They were betrayed by the government and were exterminated. Sanosuke barely making it out alive. After the ordeal, he bought revenge on the government and the people that were involved in the treason. He became a fighter for hire, calming his anger by fighting and eventually encountering Kenshin. And upon learning of his past when he served in the war and the role he played with the government, he challenged him to a fight to the death, but was subsequently defeated by Kenshin, being badly beaten in the process. He is later taken care of by Kenshin and the others, where they also bonded and was inspired by the passive atonement of his former adversary, abandoning mercenary work and dedicating his life to protecting people. They quickly became best friends and also part of the family. He was also one of my favorite characters because of his strong personality, absurd strength, loyalty, compassion, and bravery. He is a martial artist, and believes he can beat any swordsman with just the use of his fists, which is generally true. The story eventually ends up with Kenshin confronting his past by the resurgence of old allies and enemies that threatened the now peaceful Japan into a full-blown civil war yet again. In order to restore the former glory of the shogunate and the way of the samurai by destroying the Meiji government, which causes Kenshin to revive his conflicting past and forces him to decide his destiny, whether it is to revive Batosai and summon the strength in order to beat these new threats, or maintain his newfound way of peace, but at the risk of losing everyone he cares for.